Hey everyone, Shakarez or Kayle here, and after a long hiatus, I am back. Today I'll be talking about nRated's Kayle support. He recently brought back a pick that he had showcased before during the split. What makes this pick interesting is that SK Gaming is the only team that actually uses Kayle as a support. It's their own little niche. In the summer playoffs, nRated played Kayle thrice, one versus Alliance in the semifinals, and 2 other times versus Rocket for the 3rd and 4th place match, and he had an 100% win rate with her, and it inclusively drew bans from SK's opponents. Let's start with a brief rundown of the pick. As a support champion, and even in general, Kayle is a jack of all trades. There are support picks that can heal better, haste better, CC better, or poke better. Kayle is also extremely passive in lane and teamfights. She has almost no peel, only having Reckoning as her only crowd control ability. However, none of them have Kayle's ultimate, which is one of the most game-changing tools in the game. So, why Kayle? One can argue that other champions bring more to the table as a support champion when compared to Kayle, and this is very true. However, you'll only see SK Gaming pick up Kayle when they have a specific strategy prepared to accommodate this pick. First off, the meta has shifted heavily into hyper carries, Kog'Maw and Tristana being the 2 more prominent picks. Being able to protect these carries is a core aspect of the current meta picks, and Kayle can do this very well. On all the games that nRated played Kayle, Candy Panda was on a hyper carry. Secondly, Kayle provides a safety net for an assassin or a squishy fighter to play more aggressively. If they have a misstep, it won't be as unforgiving with an intervention to back it all up. In all 3 games, Svenskeren was on Kha'Zix, and in 2 of those 3 games, Jesus played Ahri and Freddy played Aatrox. To wrap it all up, she's the perfect pick to counter pick comps. When a target is caught, the obvious course of action is for a team to burst him down and remove him from a fight. Kayle's ultimate can stop this attempt immediately. In all 3 games, SK Gaming was facing a Morgana, besides other sources of hard crowd control like Elisa's Cocoon or Maokai's Twisted Advance, that can be used as engage or to follow up and to CC lock a target. So with the meta shifting to late game hyper carries like Tristana and Kog'Maw, one champion that suddenly rose from the ashes was Zilean, due to his ability to revive a champion with Chrono Shift. With Zilean, one gets a poke based support. With high early game damage and a potent haste and slow that increases duration as more points are invested into it, he's a strong lane bully that scales well into the late game due to his very potent slow and his always useful ultimate. On the other side we have Kayle. Her early game is far from bad. The problem is that in order to poke or harass, Kayle needs to get very close to her enemy, so she can just get engaged upon by a Thresh, Leona, Braum, or outranged by Karma, Zyra, Nami, or Morgana. So what does Kayle have that gives her an advantage versus Zilean? Her heal. Despite being underrated, it is one of the strongest single target heals, granting 240 health and 30% movement speed at rank 5, assuming you have no ability power. What you're looking at right now is all the non-ultimate healing abilities. Kayle is the second best throughout different AP values, only being bested by Soraka. However, these supports don't typically stack ability power, especially in competitive play, so let's look at a more accurate representation. As shown by the second graph, Kayle can be one of the best healers in the game as a support character, which is also a very useful tool for engaging or disengaging due to its movement speed haste counterpart. This is one of her stronger points as a support champion and the main factor that makes her so different from Zilean. On to Intervention versus Chrono Shift, and despite these 2 abilities being very similar in regards to what their purpose is, they end up being very different because of their use conditions. Now, Kayle's ultimate, Intervention, is used to keep the target alive. The target who is ulted can still do everything he would otherwise do without the ultimate, he just won't take damage for 2, 2.5, 3 seconds. On the other hand, Zilean's Chrono Shift requires the target to die. This means that his ultimate has a series of conditionals that can be exploited. First off, if the ultimate is used too soon on a target, the enemy can back off, wait off the 10 seconds of the ability's duration, and then go back in. Secondly, if the target is in a bad position and dies, he can get swarmed by the enemy team and taken down right after he revives. Similarly to how Guardian Angel's active might not always be useful. However, Kayle's ultimate also has downsides. First off, the target can still be crowd controlled, impairing his ability to escape, engage, or deal damage. And secondly, timing the ultimate is hard. If you ult too early, the opponents will recognize it and back off, and if you're too late, you might not block a big part of the incoming burst damage. So what's my point with all of this? Kayle's ultimate can be potentially better than Zilean's if it's used correctly. While it might not be as good in a small skirmish because there won't be enough burst damage to block, it's superior in teamfights if it fulfills its purpose. With the assassin meta rising and picks like Talon, Zed, Ahri and Fizz appearing more and more, blocking burst becomes much more predictable for a Kayle player. Now then, on to nRated's setup. There's nothing too weird regarding nRated's build. He goes for a spell thief path as it's currently the strongest for AP supports. Kayle also gets 2 procs with 1 Righteous Fury attack, since it has an auto attack and a spell counterpart. After Frostfang and Sightstone, nRated prioritizes getting Mikael's, giving him enough mana to keep using his spells constantly, cooldown reduction, and a very strong active. Paired with his ultimate and his heal, he can save and keep multiple targets healthy and safe. After his core build, nRated doesn't really get much more items, simply because supports don't really get a lot of income, so his build doesn't go too far beyond his core. For boots, he'll pick up either Ionian Boots of Lucidity for the extra cooldown reduction, or Mercury's Threads if he's feeling threatened by crowd control. And his other 2 purchases were Aegis of the Legion or Banshee's Veil, mostly because the compositions they were against had heavy AP damage dealers like Xerath, Elise, Maokai, Orianna, and Lulu. In the last split, SK Gaming has always shown that they have a unique playstyle with different picks and compositions. Kayle support is very strong in nRated's hands, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it at Worlds. They go into the championship in a rather complicated group. Despite having no Korean teams, they face the #1 seed from North America, Team Solo Mid, the #1 seed from Southeast Asia, Taipei Assassins, and the 2nd seed from China, Starhorn Royal Club. The team is not predicted to get past the group stage, but with their unique playstyle and different innovative picks like this one, they might surprise some teams and take some games from the fan favorites and advance from the group stage. That is all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the analysis on nRated's support Kayle. For the World Championship, I'll be looking at interesting compositions and picks, or just interesting ways of approaching team fights or games to analyze, so be on the look for that. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the Rift. Shakarez signing out.